Hello, this is George Sandman. I'm the founder and CEO of Growth Drive. And Growth Drive is a system used by business advisors to drive client profits, growth, and value. Now, we're also a community. Every week we get together to talk about all things business advisor, everything clients, cases, things we're seeing out in the world. Now, tune in here to this podcast, and you can join the conversation by scanning this QR code, passcode 867-5309. Jump into the conversation. Everyone's welcome. We're looking forward to having you. So here we go. On with the show.
Client.
I would like to kickstart the meeting today.
Please, Silvana.
Everyone, I know I've been very quiet for the last month and a half, and it wasn't because I wasn't paying attention. I've just been a little bit overrun with too many things. Yesterday, I finished my Microsoft consulting project for 18 months. So today I'm energized to get back to Growth Drive. So I would very, very, very kindly request that you get in touch with me, because I would like to use July to start developing our use cases. I promise George and everybody that we're going to have, some really good use cases that we can also use as a way to facilitate our conversation at the Growth Drive Summit in October. My apologies that it's a little bit later, but I promise you July is it. And by the end of July, we'll have the drafts of the use cases that we would like to put forward out there, and we can go from there.
So I'm going to underscore what Silvana just so generously offered to do. Silvana, if I understood you correctly, you're offering to convert things like a clarity analysis into a written client case. Do I have that? How
Yes.
am I wrong?
I don't know. Yes, I don't know what the shape and the form it's going to look like. I do know you already have one use case that is, in Booz Allen word, we call it sanitized. Obviously, all our cases are going to be sanitized.
100%.
However, my goal is to do two things. Number one is to come up with the right, format for our cases. Number two is to have at least 5 cases. And I'm being very aggressive here, but if you don't shoot for the moon and you don't get anywhere. And if you don't arrive to the moon, you are still among the stars. So 5 cases. And what I would like to do is I would like to highlight, if possible, different aspects of what Growth Drive is about, or different aspects about what we as Growth Drive advisors would like to either make the case to our both clients, but also the messaging out there. Now, this is my very ambitious plan, and that's how I'm thinking about it. But as far as what the format is going to look like, I cannot tell you 100%. I just need to take a look at it, and then we can collaborate, George, because I'm sure you have a lot of ideas. We can collaborate with the initiators of the cases. And then I'm happy to actually even put it forward and say, hey, guys, this is everything I got. This is my option 1 and 2. Which one do you prefer? And we can go from there.
And I'm going to underscore, of course, these will be sanitized. Of course, we will not share. I think it's, we all know that, but I want to repeat, we will not share any identifiable client information, other than saying this is a manufacturing company, and we will not even identify the city. We might identify the type of MSA. This is an NFL city. This is so something that we've done cases in the past. I'd make a couple of comments. One is you can focus. Like the Ridge Specialty Tooling case, we start with intent and we work all our way through, and that's great. And Ridge is based on real world cases. It's an amalgam. I think these might be most helpful if we think about having a pick list that illustrate points. We should focus on strategic capacity, maybe on intent, like they wanted to, this is a dimension 1 case or dimension 2. We could focus on specific growth driving objectives and discuss their interrelatedness. But fundamentally, I think if we, there's a legal structure for writing briefs. It's issue, rule, application, conclusion. Very formulaic, not, very formulaic. And if we imagine a case let's say that's approachable, that's written maybe not as a narrative, but as an executive briefing style. Silvana, I see you nodding, like, bullet points, essentially. Here's the issue the client wanted help with. Here's the best practice, right? You need an effective senior leadership team, for example. I'm just pulling something out of the air. Here's what happened when we tried to implement it. And here's what we learned from this process. I think those could be tremendously powerful in a number of different ways. And we can have Catherine turn them into client-facing talking points. We can then convert them into several different resources. Does that make sense, Silvana?
Yes. And actually, I would raise you. We make some very important points, and I've had the opportunity lately to start talking more and more about the growth drive practice and the growth practice on its own versus adjacent to another event in a business owner's or CEO's, trajectory of the life. And I find it very interesting because we say, just because you want to grow, that doesn't mean you're ready to grow. And the CEOs say, well, what does it really mean? And I'll just say, well, if you, are not having repeatable profit and margins and revenues and everything else, then it's impossible for you to just immediately go from where you are in that particular place to next grow or whatever it is the growth you're going for. So you need a mini step in between that in order then to get yourself ready to then accelerate. They look at you and I see that their wheels are turning. And so what I would like to do is I'd like to even go as sophisticated as getting the cases where the customer wants to grow, for example. We go in with a growth drive and we look at, their assessment and we know they're not growing. And there are 3 or 4 levers that, are absolutely holding them back. So, I'm thinking about demonstrating and articulating those finite points that sometimes are not easy to just say out loud because they're concepts. They're like, well, I can do this and I can do that and I can be a hero. And so part of it is I would like to also use the use cases, if possible, to just emphasize those important points that we are making for our clients as far as our process and our growth drive, concept to help them get where they want. And then they can see it for themselves. Oh, okay, I see. So if I'm here and I want to grow text, I need to do something in between. And this is what it looks like. And then at the end of it, I'll get, I'll shoot for these results. And then at the end of these results, then we have the next steps.
Yeah. Sprint
Making it
waterfalls.
Georgia, Silvana, thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Just to differentiate, from using language of use case, what is the difference between a case study and a use case? Because my view of a use case is an actual real world example where you will draw off of the community to provide the basics for you then to put in the format and expand, including the key elements you talked about, where a case study is like rich specialty tool.
Okay, I believe it's going to be both. I cannot be looking at everything you guys give me and then just be like, the good witch of the West or the East and just say, okay, this is what you said. This is what we're going to say. I think what we're going to do is I'm going to come and I'm going to look at everything together and I'm going to come up with a couple of formats that work. And then based on the format, then I'm going to come back and we collectively, or the person that actually put the use case forward, because let's take you, Larry. You have a company that you're working with and you want to put forward the use case. I understand the definition between use case and case studies that you're talking about. I'm not really sure which one we're going to end up with. But the bottom line is we collectively, or you and I, or the group, it's going to look at it back and forth until we come to the point where we find the right approach and the right end results for those use cases.
It's important. If we are using these at the summit, George, we should share with Silvana the agenda and breakouts of where we envision them being used in the areas where people will choose to go into a particular room to learn together around deepening understanding of the tools. In another room, deepening understanding of the methodology, all related, coming off a panel discussion on that topic beforehand, and then breaking down. And that's where we have thought through where the use cases come into play to enrich the discussion around a common case.
Larry, that's a great point, and that can kickstart this effort. So we can work as a community to say, okay, here are the use cases we need. And Silvana, thank you. Larry, that's a fantastic point.
George, I was going to make the same point.
Winning.
If we're going to talk about, I'm going to use an analogy because I like analogies. They make the point sometimes better. If you're going to ask me for a restaurant, I'm going to ask you what type of restaurant, because you can list off 100 restaurants, but do you want a French restaurant? Do you want a steak restaurant? Do you want a sushi restaurant? So I think we need, if we're going to solicit people to come forward with case studies, we need to be specific about what we're asking for. We'll get better results if we ask more specifically.
So everybody's right. I planned to have this conversation with you guys to figure out how far are you in the planning and what you have envisioned for it. This can go two ways. This can go the way where we just put some use cases together for simply illustration and just leave it at that. Or this can go where we take the use cases and you and I guys and everybody work together to make them as useful tools for the October one. I didn't want to come out of the gate and assume that, because I have not been in the meetings, but in my mind, there would have been the next perfect step. So I don't know how far you are. I don't know what we can do, but we can do the illustration part, or we can make it, turn it into a tool. My intent was to do the second in the long run.
So one preliminary point, I like this discussion very much, thank you, is to define what is, I'm just going to use the word case. Like when we talk about a case, what does that mean? And to Larry's point, and Steve, I see your hand up. Let's get to that. Would it be helpful if I share where we are in the agenda dev? Because it's really progressing nicely.
Good.
So would that be, Larry, you agree? Mike?
I think with this audience, people were committed to being part of this. Yeah, I think would be great.
Awesome.
That's what, but Steve, I know Steve's had his hand up.
Yeah. I'm Steve, please, man. You don't have to put your
Turning
hand,
yellow.
just
Hand's
jump
turning
in.
yellow.
How are you, Steve?
I'm fine. So my comment, the conference aside and all that, the number one thing, me personally, I'd like to see out of this thing is everyone out of every whatever you call it, a case study, a use case, whatever you want to call it, is a WIFM, where the me is the CEO. So I think that needs to be front and center in each of these things.
I totally agree. Thank you, Steve. And by the way, everyone on this call and anyone watching this later, if you go into the community, there are client-facing talking points. And if you just put that in the search bar, you're going to come up with a raft of resources. So I totally agree, Steve. I'm going to bring up where we are in the
George, while you're bringing that up, just a suggestion. The conferences I've gone to, EPI included, but it's not only EPI. The conferences I've gone to where we've shared a case study, it's been useful to have the case study have a little more meat to it. But the more meat you have to it, the more it's likely to have, it's going to be hard to prep before a conference with 5 different meaty case studies. right? If you're going to go into 5 different conversations and be ready to talk at a detailed level about, again, I go back to Larry's point about, are we talking about a case study or a use case? If we're going to read something to understand how we would do something together and then talk about it, that's one thing. If we're going to take a case study and use that case study as a discussion point, and we all are working the case study together to determine what the outcome might be, I think 1 is better than 5 if we're doing case study work. If we're doing use case work, I think having 4 or 5 different examples is a good thing.
So this is how I see, excellent point. This is how I see this playing. The scope and the final definition and the use of the use case probably will not be firm in the next, not until like 2 or 3 weeks from now. When I've gathered everything, we have talked, I understand, figuring out how do we complement and add value to the conference. And then at the end of it, we can come up with, this is the end result of this exercise for what we have right now and what we're trying to accomplish, knowing that we can then take it to the next level if we cannot do it before October. So the way I think about it.
Yeah, that you're making a great point, Silvana.
Let's define. Yeah. And then we can come together 3 weeks from now or 4 weeks from now and say, okay, this is everything on the table. We have satisfied the conference preparation because that's very important. And now, based on everything we know, this is what we can do with quality and have a good result on the either use case or case studies.
So yeah, Silvana, your point's a really good one. We need to have a process and a well understood process that here's what a case looks like. Here's why you should submit it, and here's what we all get out of it. I also agree firmly with Eric that if we try to learn 5 cases for the summit, not a conference, the summit, we're setting ourselves up for failure.
Yeah. If we're going to define use case as an example of how something worked out, then that's fine. That's easy to go through 5 of them. If we're going to define the case study as something we work through together, it's a set of facts that we're going to use to learn from, that's 1.
Yeah. But so let me, guys, maybe if we just pause here, I'm going to do a quick run through the summit agenda as it is currently.
Amen to Eric.
And yes, and then that'll inform the conversation. But let's separate the two. The case we do case studies. They are part of the path to mastery for C3Ds. So when you submit a case, you are earning recognition from the community that you are as a practitioner. So you're amassing, credibility. And Silvana is very generously offering to help with that effort, especially in this formative time. Now let's talk about the summit. And then we can circle back and talk about cases. So I'll make a couple of points. If that's is this okay, guys? Before I jump up on my stump?
George, I have a client at 10, so I'm only going to be on a couple more minutes. Keep going. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So imagine a summit that delivers like a certification. And is that insane? No, it's not. A summit is different than a conference. And I'll differentiate the two. At a conference, and we've all go to them, and they're great. We go and we have networking opportunities, and then we go into rooms and typically listen to presentations and have some time for questions and answers, right? And that's how we learn, but it's learning by consuming typically. A summit, on the other hand, is a gathering of professionals. And this is I know that it's a self-curated group, but it is a curated group. And so a summit is distinct from a conference because we're going to work through knowledge development. We are going to gather our ideas, our expertise, and we're going to forge them through the crucible of the summit. We're going to forge them into something that is of common value. And we are going to lean hard into expanding your networks. So with the summit is actually distinct from a conference concept. I'm going to scroll through the narrative. You'll be seeing that as a blog post. And I'm going to do a quick run through. Building a profitable advisory business is our theme. And the committee has been super in putting together a summit, right? So we'll have some bonus workshops. There are two tracks before the summit even starts. That's on Monday morning. A lot of people travel in. So those are going to be turbocharging client acquisitions or working with COIs, collaboration, and the advisor's pledge. And how do those play out? So two different tracks before the summit even starts. Summit kicks off at 1 o'clock. And I'm going to skip of course, you're going to hear about where we are, and we're going to do some where we are, et cetera. But we're going to jump straight in at 2:30. We're jumping straight into an exercise, a workshop that'll include the whole room. And we're going to lean into confirming intent and to really discover collectively how the various advisor professions contribute to delivering a client win. Okay, we're going to have 5 or more professions in the room: exit planning wealth advisors, exit planners, CPAs, business advisors, advisors, fractional CFOs, some private equity operators. I mean, you don't get that diverse a group together. I think would be an opportunity missed if we didn't say, hey guys, let's leverage all of that incredible expertise. So we're going to jump straight into an exercise, and then we're going to close the day out. And there's a lot there. We are going to buddy up. In the summit, we are doing a buddy system. So how do we help develop networks? One, we're going to have exercises where you're going to start working with someone you've never met before. And this is done in a very structured way. We are going to have a lot of networking opportunities. The breakfasts are an hour long. Lunch is an hour. We're going to do the reservations of 6 to 8 people around town again on the Monday night. That'll be terrific. On Tuesday night, we're having a big group dinner at the Charleston Aquarium. And so a lot of networking opportunities. So now we've workshopped intent. A lot of you will have started with client acquisition, and then we're getting into intent. So here's a journey: acquiring clients, discovering intent, understanding how we all contribute to delivering that intent. And we'll close the day with an interview. I just removed the name because I haven't asked the gentleman yet, but we have people in the room, one guy in particular, who has had some successful exits, and I think that'd be a fascinating interview.
He'll say yes.
He'll say yes. Of course he will. He's a giver. He's one of us. Tuesday. Now we're getting into the overall format for the summit is panel for the room, Q&A with the room. Now 70, 80, 100 people, right? So we're all going to chew on a topic together and then break into, you'll have a choice between one of 2 workshop tracks. In the morning, we're going to talk about strategic capacity as a paradigm for growth. Those of you who have seen the draft white paper that's this close to being published, you get it. Strategic capacity as a paradigm for growth. And then we're going to do workshops. One is going to be on making strategic capacity relevant to strategic intent, right? Tying the 2 together. And then the other is, again, collaboration across advisory roles. I'm trying to.
George, I'm going to just jump in because I have to leave.
You go.
So now, I'm glad you're doing this because, Silvana, if the intent of the use cases are to stand on their own merit, it might or might not fit in, depending on which one, into this theme. If they're designed to be launched for the summit and then have value after, then where you just saw strategic capacity and those breakouts, we could have a use case really focused on strategic capacity and maybe 2 elements of that. So, okay, good. I got to run. Nice seeing everyone. Take care.
All right. You have a great day, man. I'll talk to you soon.
You got it.
Just to add to what Larry said, I believe whatever we call them and whatever we develop will be 2 purpose use. And now that I understand a little bit more that, we can definitely design or have the process and the outcome to actually support the summit because.
Yeah, no question. I agree.
Yeah, just to hop on that, this discussion actually started many months ago when Silvana first volunteered to do this. And that was before the summit was even a gleam in George's eye. So originally, this task had a different purpose, but there's no problem or there's no issue with having these, whatever they're going to be called, served to masters, so to speak.
Yeah, Steve, you're absolutely right. So let's think of cases as something that we are going to always be developing and publishing, and that is a constant. If some of them are applicable to the summit, great. But the cases that Silvana is describing are not. This isn't okay. We're going to do it for the summit, then we're going to stop. This is in perpetuity, and we are building a library of cases.
Yes.
Would it be helpful if I
Steve,
go ahead, please?
No, I just want to be very clear. It was all what I offered in the beginning was, in my mind, phase one of the cases. And the summit is actually unveiling phase two and phase three of what I had in mind when I was thinking about the cases. So it's not a different scope. It is just still going through what we started, but now we can take some of that information we gather and the way that we package it and the way that we put it together that would be helpful to the summit. So the scope is the same. It's just a phased approach. And now we're going 2 phases together versus phase after phase.
Yeah. And it won't surprise you that Claire will be able to convert a clarity report into a case and do it using the formula that I described earlier. She will only be able to do a first draft, right? Right, everyone, right? So, and Silvana is doesn't know this yet, but she's going to be helping to train to generate the first draft so that people have the power to generate their own cases and then edit them, people, as humans, right? This is we need to get analog. Remember, analog accountability is analog. So, okay, super cool. Would it be helpful if I walk through the rest of the
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right, great. So in the morning, so we started before the conference in the pre-show, as I call it. We're doing client acquisition. We've spent day one talking about looking at intent and finishing with an interview with a CEO who had an intent, delivered on that intent, and had a successful outcome. Day two, we're going to lean in the morning. Again, strategic capacity is a paradigm for growth with 2 workshops. You choose, right? I want you to have the experience you want. And these panels come out of the work that is Garrison still on, the work that the committee is doing, which has been fantastic. So in the afternoon, we're going to talk about, now we're going to expanding our reach and relevance with clients. And we're going, how do we become indispensable in a competitive market, right? So this goes to client retention. We're acquiring, we're discovering, we're retaining. Okay, so this goes to client development and retention. Use cases for clarity data is workshop 1, case. 2, models for delivering wins. And we're seeing some interesting models in the community. We see people who are solopreneurs and come to the community because they want, because we all want to collaborate, right? We don't want to solve problems alone. Down to we have firms in the community that are the formal LLCs, partnerships, et cetera. And we have this new hybrid, which I love to see developing. It's super cool. We have several groups of people who are starting to work together. I think the most formal example is Be Ready Exits, which is kind of a virtual firm operating under one bill. So we're going to explore those models and why they benefit the client and how those might help your thinking about building a profitable advisory business. Sweet. Then after each of these sessions, so panel, Q&A, workshop, we're going to come back together and we're going to share our learnings in a room. And anyone who's been in one of our workshops, this is great stuff. That's its own discussion. So how do we take the learnings and bring them all together? And we're going to go over to the aquarium. We're going to have cocktails and dinner. It's beautiful. The deepest, not the largest is in Atlanta, the deepest saltwater tank in the country. It's going to be fun, guys. Wednesday. So now if you think of the journey, now what do we need to do? Well, we've kind of gotten through long-term execution. We're going to lean into the future. What does the future look like? Gives us an opportunity to talk about our future as professionals. Eric, as the chair of the Future of Our Profession Committee. It gives us an opportunity to talk about the future of our community, the future of technology. There are a lot of conversations here that we will cover several topics, but what does the future of our profession look like? And the people are going to be in the room. We'll dig into that. We're then going to do a live coffee Klatsch, right? We're going to do this, but with the whole room. We'll have an open mic, facilitated though conversation, because there's a lot of people. We're going to keep the conversation focused and productive, and we're going to talk about what we're going to start distilling everything we've learned through this journey. We're a day and a half of good work into this. When we're then going to have an interview with private equity's perspective on strategic capacity. So when we start building companies and looking at the private capital markets, how do the private capital markets view the work we're doing? And we'll reinforce how bloody valuable you guys are. And then we'll close with a reflections, action steps, key takeaways, and then our commitments as a community. Okay. So that's a heck of a journey. Does that make sense, guys? I'll stop sharing. That makes sense?
Looks awesome.
Thank you, Eric. Yeah, I couldn't be, I couldn't be more excited. Tim, does that make sense to you? You look like you're worried about something.
No, I'm not worried at all. Looks great. Trying to figure out if I should stay Wednesday night or fly home Thursday morning. I'm thinking Thursday because I'm going to need time to digest all this stuff.
Yeah, the summit does end at noon on Wednesday, so you can travel on Wednesday afternoon. And if, to the extent we stick around, we'll probably have a post-show show, but that'll be, by that point, all of our brains will be wrung dry. So I hope you can see that we've took the best experiences. We've been doing summits a long time. The best experiences from last year. Last year was really magic, and amplified them. And a lot of people have already.
Very impressive. You guys have done.
Yeah,
Raise the bar.
The committee did a great job. Yeah, did a great job. Is everyone planning on coming? I'll obviously be here.
Yeah.
Awesome. Excellent.
That's a rhetorical question.
It's good.
Rhetorical
Good
question. Of course.
And, one of the things, and this is one of the things that we challenged ourselves to do that I'll remind us all of, is that last year we said, okay, well, we want more people in the room, to which I said, great, love that. And by the way, summits are not money-making events. So it sounds self-serving. It is not a money-making event. I mean, we cover our expenses, obviously. But you guys, I'm hoping that you will each bring someone who would be new to the community. Not that they need to become a subscriber, but someone who would get incredible value from being in the room. Maybe a COI, a colleague, someone that you work with on a routine basis. Bring them, and there's a thank you. So when you bring a buddy, you earn a credit, a $250 credit towards any future spend. Not against the subscription, but any course, C3D, future summits, workshops. We're going to get the facilitation course back out of the shed. So there's something in it for you as well as a thank you. So, okay, I'll stop there. Questions, suggestions, change topics?
The more I listen to your walkthrough, George, of the agenda, the more I'm leaning towards an underlying case that could be used in multiple of those areas where there's a case and some examples. I'm going to use a different word without the word case in it. We can have some examples of successful things, which I think you also refer to as cases, but I'm going to call them examples for this. We have some examples of success in these areas, but there's an underlying case that each time we go into one of these breakouts, we can work that case to the breakout that we're working on. What's the strategic capacity in this? What's going on here that would contribute to or detract from strategic capacity? What's the strategic intent in this one? What's going on with COIs in this one, or whatever the topic is, that you can take the underlying aspects of a case that we're all familiar with, that we've all read ahead of time and has enough meat in it that we can wrestle with it. That one case allows us to all pull it apart and learn together and see. I want to see what Silvana sees in that case that I missed. I didn't even think about connecting those two things that Silvana read into the case that I didn't even occur to me as being relevant to what we're talking about in this session, right? To me, that's the value in the case, is it gets us all to show and demonstrate our part of what we see, but to learn from others what their view and their aspect of it is, right? That's what the case does, is it draws out the depth of versus the superficial things that we can all talk about when we're just sort of riffing like we often do on this call, right? We never get down to the real gritty part of the discussion that says, okay, I'll just use an example. Okay, their balance sheet can't support any more debt. How are we going to do this if we aren't allowed to put more debt on the balance sheet? What's our solution to this problem? And then we brainstorm on that and come up with interesting things, right? That's that's what I mean by getting into the grit of it, not just talking at that superficial level.
Eric, you're talking about phase 3 of my project. So
Yeah.
I thought that after we, collected enough, then I was going to talk to George and see if we can actually put a rubric in this coffee Klatsch where we pick something about one case or another and talk about a specific thing. I think it's good for us to have the conversation on a regular basis because we get together and, it takes us from talking at 40,000 feet to talking about maybe 20,000 feet on specific parts of the growth drive. But also, I think for whomever stumbles upon these videos, they can get some real value and it will be much more meaty than just, the more 50,000 feet conversation. So that's phase 3. It's coming. I promise. Yeah. If George says yes, I have a really baked idea of what I think we can do with that.
I love, by the way, integrating. That's a great idea, Silvana, integrating it into this. And anybody who knows me well knows I love to talk at 40,000 feet. That's my favorite place to live, is the theoretical. But the honest answer is you solve problems at a detailed level, right? Ideas come at the 40,000 foot level. Solutions come at the 1,000 foot level, right? And so you need to do both, but you got to get down to that 1,000 foot level at some point and talk about the details.
True. And to add a little bit more complexity, because I cannot help it. So we have our group of advisors, choose a different sort of focus. And George has got a very good way of looking at who are you and what do you want to do with Growth Drive. And so some of the things you're talking about are very, very deep. We can also start talking about then how are the strategists, the quarterbacks, how are they going to work with the down deep ones? And that's going to be different from the people that are down deep and they are more vertical in certain areas. So how are the architects it's going to do versus the builder versus other things. So those are all things that we can talk for the future.
Silvana, you just hit on something that I should have pointed out earlier. One of the things that we are going to share in advance and reiterate in advance and make sure that everyone who's in the room understands is the are you a 1 or a 5, right? Are you a strategic planning or exit planning talker, educator, architect, general contractor, or fractional? And most of the people in the room, people who identify in this community, are 2s, 3s, and 4s. They're client educators, architects, and possibly general contractors, right? It's a spectrum or a continuum. Just thank you for pointing that out, Silvana. And
Because
the entire
Yes,
summit is
and I'm
designed to honor that fact, right? That's why these collaboration workshops, so that we all appreciate so we each appreciate what our colleagues bring to the table, and why frankly, why we should be probably doing more collaboration than we do right now.
Yeah, I think fundamentally, George, the idea of the case study and working through a case study together is not for me to teach Silvana how to look at a balance sheet like I look at a balance sheet. The idea is for us to understand better the need and the expertise that everybody has in the room, the variety, the diversity of the thought and the approach, and to be able to better utilize everyone, right? It's not because if we go into it thinking I'm going to learn everything everybody else knows how to do, that's a losing proposition.
totally agree with you. Both
Totally
my
agree.
undergrad and grad are in finance. I can do CFO and finance and everything else, but
Yeah.
my love is strategy. My love is change management. My love is education. So I choose in my practice to stay architect and educator. Can I do the balance sheet? Can I go deep in it? Absolutely. Do
Yeah.
I want? No. This is where I will always bring strong, CFOs or strong people to do that because I want to stay there. Some other people want to go down. Perfect. And there is a place and a playbook for everybody. And I think the more we articulate that and the more we give, everybody a path how to get somewhere or how to better utilize effectively, both the community growth drive and the use cases, the better we are.
Yeah, for sure. We agree.
File an agreement. Awesome.
I came prepared today.
It's funny because that's fantastic, Silvana. Thank you. This is not where I thought the conversation was going to go today. So
I'm sorry, I took over.
Oh, no, don't apologize. This is great. This is fantastic.
I meant to write the text, but I worked until 12:30 a.m. this morning, and so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna ask forgiveness and just make an announcement and see how it goes.
That was great. That's great, and thank you. It's very generous. Your offer of time and everything you bring to the conversation is fantastic. Thank you. What else? It's like tossing hand grenades.
Can I throw something out, George?
Please, Jeff.
I've been pretty quiet, and I'm the newest to the community, still kind of finding my way in this group. This is a great group, by the way. I love the vigorous discussion and all the different insights, the smarts, and all of that. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about the track you put together for the conference, evaluating that as we speak. It looks like an amazing conference, well designed to echo everyone else's comments. So I'm a fractional interim CEO primarily. I'm a little bit different than what a lot of you folks do. And I'm just going to roll this out for anyone's discussion, input, advice in terms of how to best plug in here to do what I do in concert with what you guys do. I love numbers. I'm good with numbers, but I'm not going to take the Eric approach and dig into every aspect of the balance sheet. But I do understand what's on there and how it all works as a CEO, just a different perspective. So that's my kind of blanket question to the group, if I could throw that out this morning.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jeff.
I think, Jeff, the thing that I've found is it doesn't, I don't say this lightly, it doesn't matter what all of us think. What ultimately you got to find is what's the value the client perceives in what you're doing, right? Why, and the struggle I've found in different instances is, does the client see me as valuable in whatever they're doing? Like Silvana, I spent 20 years in some very, very large companies doing very technical finance things. Sold $1 billion business for Johnson Controls earlier on in my career, right? Like I've done some really technical things, but I spend a lot of my time now, being a bartender. listening to their problems and helping them solve their problems, right? Over 50% of my time, I'm waiting for the university that I serve at now, that I got my undergrad degree on, to award me a honorary doctorate in psychology, because that's where I spend the vast majority of my time, is solving people problems, right? And I have a CPA certificate and a accounting degree that says I can do really technical things over here, right? So I think it matters again, Eric's opinion, I think it matters less what you say you do. I think it matters more finding the right clients that need what you want to do and matching well. For instance, one of my very early clients was an engineer. Sorry, Tim, right? You have a little bit of that background, right? An engineer, right? And I walked in and I met with them. I'd been introduced by somebody. We sat down and he said, I'm Eric, I'm good. And I was holding myself out at the time as a fractional CFO. I don't now. I do that work, but that's not how I present myself. And he said, I'm not sure why I need you, Eric. I'm really good with numbers. And so I took him through, I said, great. What are you working on right now? He said, I'm presenting a forecast to my bank. I said, great. Let's talk about the forecast. You got a revenue number? Yeah, we're going to grow 5% on our revenue. I said, okay, can walk me through that a little bit. He described the 5% growth, and I said, okay, sounds reasonable to me. What's your gross margin look like? And revenue went up by 5% and his gross margin went up by 10. I said, that's interesting, right? Here's an interesting problem. Your gross margin is growing faster than your revenue. So tell me about that. He goes, well, we've got some initiatives that we're doing. Let's walk through those initiatives. And so we just took those 5 initiatives, and he said, well, we're going to save one person over here. Oh, great. How much does that person cost? $60,000, right? We just did the math simply in front of him, right? That's all I did. Simple thing. And we added all that up, and I said, look, the gain in your 5 to 10% is $300,000, and you just gave me 150 of it. Where's the other 150? And I stopped. And I just sat there. And, it took him about 30 seconds, and then he looked at me and goes, that's why I need you. I said, yeah, that's why you need me. I'm going to help you tie that all together and make sure that what you said you think is over here actually adds up and works to what's going to work in a business environment. Yeah. And again, that's just one example, guys. But he didn't think he needed me because he thought he had my skill set, and he didn't. Right?
Well, pigeonholing. Yeah.
Correct. And so, Jeff, what I'd say to you is, if you're going to go in as fractional CEO, you're not going to walk into a client that already thinks they've got that skill set and have success with them. That's going to be right. That's where you got to find who are the right matches for you. Is it more the sales guy who doesn't really know how to run the company? He has this skill set, but doesn't have this, and you come alongside him. It's finding the right match for him. It's not a better or worse. If there's one thing I've learned in the last 25 years of doing this, it's not a better or worse skill set. All of us have great skill sets, but I might fit better than Silvana or you because of the skill set I bring and the style I bring it in. And it's both. It's skill set and style. Or Tim might fit better than me because he brings the right skill set and style to it, right? And so I think that's the key more than it is like I said, I don't call myself a fractional CFO. I never intended to be a fractional CFO. Right. I always intended to be a growth expert and an exit planner. That's what I intended from day one, 16 years ago when I started my business. But the world didn't know what that was 16 years ago. So I called myself a fractional CFO because people would pay for that. And then I did the work that I wanted to do anyway.
Well, and what's interesting is we're all focusing on, the fundamental role of the CEO is to maximize shareholder value, right?
Yeah.
To the extent, Jeff, I love the fact that you're coming in and saying, okay, One of the things we see in clients, and Eric, I love your feedback. We see in a client is that they may have the word CEO written over the door, right? They have it on their business card, but they are not behaving like a CEO. They're behaving like probably not even the COO. They're behaving like the president, right? They're operating the business every day, and they're not thinking about value. And value is when we all know, right? When we work on value, when we work on strategic capacity, all this great stuff happens. Yeah, Eric, that was a great point.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Eric. And I'm really intrigued with the whole be ready exit concept you mentioned earlier, George, because I love teaming up and everyone's got their role. If you're building out a basketball roster, you don't need 5 point guards. You need one and a backup in case the top point guard gets injured. You got to get a diverse group. You got to have your center, your power forward, and everybody else on the team. And that's kind of where I come play. I'm all about execution. I get excited, thrilled, energized to come in and make the changes in concert with someone like you, Eric, or you other folks.
Yeah. And I think it's more important that you're able to describe the value that you're going to deliver to them than that you focus on what the title you would be equivalent to. Because they may be thrown off by the CEO title. Well, I already have a CEO and it's me, right? But they definitely want what you're bringing to the table. So positioning it in a way that they see it as valuable to them, rather than calling it fractional CEO, what if you called it chief execution officer?
Yeah,
Right?
I've been using transition executive. That's a great point because you remove one barrier right out of the gate if you can kind of remove that CEO unless they're recruiting for that, which is a different animal. You're right.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So, Jeff, just to clarify, the question that you posed in the beginning is this is what you do and this is what you intend to do, and how this community or the Growth Drive platform can support you in that, right?
The platform and or the community. Yeah, I'm still wrestling with the platform because I've got to be able to execute. Yeah.
So here it is, my take on it. This is how I understood, because yes, when I go in, sometimes I think that the titles are a misnomer because it all depends on what the definition of the person on the titles is, the work that needs to be done. What I love about the Growth Drive is that it provides us all as a structure to methodically, and the criteria to methodically look at the company, not only to assess it, but also to figure out what needs to be done. And also, again, I come from strategy and management consulting, a maturity model. It does provide a maturity model that helps you as the leader to figure out where you are right now and what are the levers and how do you go from here to there. And I think as a fractional C, whatever that is, it's a very powerful tool because in a way it provides a standard sort of like starting point. And it also provides sort of a frame of reference based on the assessment of where you are and where you want to be. And I think that is very helpful. I had the same problem. I became a chief operating officer, but I was more like a CEO and chief operating officer. And I would have loved to have this structure. I made my own structure. I did a lot of research, but there was no place for me to go and say, okay, what is it that I need to know? What is the big space that I live in? And how do I go from here to there? And I think that's the biggest bang for the buck, number one. Number two, it is the community and the way we work with each other and how we much share, and the collective many, many, many years of experience and expertise, either in depth or in breadth. And so I think that's the value proposition for me being in, and also value proposition, what I would like to pass along to the clients.
Good. Thank you.
Outstanding. Outstanding. You guys, it's hard to believe it's been an hour. We should have the
I put the ball in the tees. These guys kicked it through the goalpost beautifully.
So I have to drop off. You guys are welcome to stay on. Is there anybody planning on staying on?
I gotta go.
Okay.
I have to go. But
Listen, what a fantastic conversation. Thank you very much. Jeff, if you want to keep that topic going, call me.
Same.
And also post in circle. People will definitely contribute back. So listen, thank you, each of you. Steve, Silvana, Jeff, Eric, Tim. And I hope I see you next week. Anything I can do to help, let me know.
See you guys.
Have a
Thank you all.
great.
Great.
Bye.
This episode is brought to you by the Growth Drive Summit. Our theme this year is building a profitable advisory business. Join us in Charleston, South Carolina, October 6th, 7th, and 8th. Expand your network, learn new skills, and generally have a good time. This is a top-rated event. We're looking forward to seeing you there. Thank you.